Day 4 of Formula 1 2020 pre-season testing. The first day of week 2 sees Robert Kubica at the top of the timing sheets. I did not expect that whatsoever. It is only testing, but a nice little surprise to start the week. Welcome back to our Formula 1 pre-season testing reviews, roundup sort of thing. If you haven't been able to catch any of the action from today's testing session, don't worry, I've got you covered. In today's video, we'll have a look at what went down on track. We'll try our best. We'll try and analyse the times, the laps, what went down, red flags, crashes, spins, mechanical failures, all that good stuff. So if you want to keep up to date with Formula 1 2020, you know what to do. Subscribe button down below. But I think with 19 runners, we should just crack on with it. 18 of the full-time 2020 drivers were out on track today. The only two that weren't were Antonio Giovinazzi and Kevin Magnussen. But Robert Kubica did do a stint for Alfa Romeo, meaning every team fielded two drivers today except Haas. Romain Grosjean was the sole representative for Haas. But as I just mentioned, and as you can see on your timing screens, it was Robert Kubica, top of the standings, which means every single day of testing has either seen an Alfa Romeo or a Mercedes at the top of the timesheets. Does that mean Alfa Romeo are going to fight Mercedes for the title? No, it does not. It is only testing. Times do lie, but it's just nice to see Kubica at the top of a timing sheet, and I cannot remember for the life of me we saw Kubica at the top of any kind of Formula 1 standing. So that's quite nice and a nice way to start the season and a nice way to start week 2. But I do just want to mention, because of the fact there were 19 runners today, we've got two timing sheets. So what I'm going to do is throughout the video, every, couple of minutes or so, I'll just flick between the two of them. So as you'll see, there is a bit of an overlap. I think P5 to P15 are on both sheets, so you will see some drivers get chopped off halfway through the video. You'll see what I mean. It's pretty straightforward. But behind Robert Kubica was Max Verstappen, who caused a red flag very late on. We'll talk about that a little bit later. In the Red Bull, a 1:17.3, 4 tenths off. There's no real point at looking at the lap times, but 84 laps for Max, not a bad job. Sergio Perez in the Racing Point, also 84 laps, also on the same tyre as Max Verstappen. Interestingly enough, that Racing Point still looking pretty strong, although I should take my own advice and not look at the times. The two AlphaTauris, P4 and 5, or AlphaTauris, however you want to say it. Another interesting fact, AlphaTauri still, and this is something I've been keeping my eye on last week and will do this week, still every single session an AlphaTauri has been P5. Really pointless fact, but something I find quite interesting. Alex Albon P6 for Red Bull, although only 29 laps for him, had some issues this morning in the car. Lewis Hamilton, the lead Mercedes, in P7, followed by the other Mercedes of Lance Stroll. I mean, the Racing Point, the old Mercedes, the W10, the Racing Point, Tracing Point, whatever you want to call them. Lance Stroll in P8 and Valtteri Bottas in the W11 Mercedes in P9. Sebastian Vettel rounding out the top 10. I will quickly mention now, and then I'll leave it for the rest of the video. There was a press conference with Sebastian Vettel today, and I think a few people got a little bit optimistic for some kind of announcement, whether that was going to be a contract extension or whatever. It was nothing. Just a normal press conference, so no news on that front, but P10 for Sebastian, P11 Daniel Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz P12, Charles Leclerc in the other Ferrari P13, then the two Williams in P14 and 15. You're now going to see the second timetable, so you'll see that P5 to 15 again are on both. P16 Romain Grosjean, the sole representative for Haas, over 100 laps again for Romain, putting in the stints at the moment for Haas. Lando Norris P17 with a new helmet today. Really pointless info once again. P18 Kimi Raikkonen and P19 Esteban Ocon, 4.6 seconds off the pace. But after I go through today's incidents, I want to talk about that, because actually a really strong day from Esteban Ocon, and I know I haven't been doing this, but perhaps driver of the day, if you want to say there was a driver of the day in testing. Whatever. Incidents. A fair few to talk about. 3 red flags. I'll start with the last one. Right at the end of the day. I mean, this must have been with about 5 minutes to go. 15 tops between that kind of time period. I think it was 5 minutes to go. not only Max Verstappen's Red Bull pulling over to a stop at turn 10, turn 9, Danny Kvyat's Alfa Tauri also pulling over to a stop. Verstappen's pulling over was a little bit more eccentric with a bit of a spin on the outside of turn 10, which isn't a normal place you would have a spin. And also the car was making some fairly unhealthy noises. So it's safe to say there was an issue with the car. Verstappen got out, had a bit of a laugh with the marshals, which was nice to see. They've given up their time, the marshals, so it was nice to see getting a bit of fan interaction, if you will, with Max. He was taking it all in good spirits. It was at the end of the day, but Danny Kvyat pulling over to the side. No official news yet of why he pulled over, but there also seems to be some kind of issue there as well. So both Honda-powered cars coming to a stop at the end of the day. We also saw the Williams of Nicholas Latifi just before lunchtime, just before the good bit of the day. He pulled over with another issue. Latifi having 2 issues so far in testing over the 2 weeks. His car pulling to a halt. No confirmed issue or no confirmed reason for the issue just yet. There was supposedly an issue with one of the parts inside the power unit, but I don't want to give you specifics because I will probably be wrong. But it did pull over. Interesting for Mercedes, something they should perhaps keep an eye on, that the Williams reliability is not as strong as last year, and also Mercedes last week had an ERS failure with Valtteri Bottas, so perhaps they're not as invincible as it would seem at the moment. And the other, perhaps more interesting red flag of the day was in the first hour. Sebastian Vettel having a spin, hopefully his last spin of the season, a little bit clumsy onto the grass on the outside of turn 5 and 6. I think, yeah, clumsy's definitely the best word for it. Car was able to keep going again, not in the barriers, nothing too crazy. Gravel on the circuit though, ultimately a red flag. Cleaned up fairly routinely, to be totally honest with you. Laps today, that's a statistic I usually quite enjoy looking at. Nothing too spectacular. Last week we saw Romain Grosjean hit 158 in a single day. He also had the most laps today of any single driver, but it was only 107. And actually, I personally feel, especially in the afternoon, it was quite a quiet session. I thought teams might go more guns blazing this week, perhaps put a few more flashy times out there. And yes, Robert Kubica has done that, but no other drivers, in my opinion anyway, really gave it some beans today, which I get. I totally understand they want to really try and conserve their pace, not give away too much to the other teams and competitors. Totally makes sense, but it's just a bit of fun for us viewers, and that's sad in a way. That all we're looking for is a nice juicy time, nice headline time, and some juicy laps. But I think what's more interesting is some of the teams that had some issues inside the garage. You might be able to see on screen now either, I mean, it doesn't matter which image is on screen, Gasly and Albon, 25 and 29 laps respectively for both of those two drivers. A little bit worrying, but as I mentioned last week, and I do firmly believe this, you want to have issues in testing. That's the point in testing. You want to see what's working on the car. You want to see what needs improving. You want to see how good your reliability is. So whilst it's great that, let's just say, Mercedes, for example, are having an almost perfect testing. Yes, they've had some issues, but relatively speaking, it's been fairly plain sailing. Are they getting as much data as a Red Bull? Maybe not so much on the reliability front. Equally, though, it's great if there's no issues, because there's no issues. So it's swings and roundabouts, but only 25 laps for Pierre, 29 for Alex. Kvyat was able, and Verstappen as well, both of them were able to really put in some solid laps in the afternoon. Danny 61, Max Verstappen 84, but the driver I did mention a minute ago I wanted to talk about, and I think deserves a special mention, Esteban Ocon. Now, whilst he didn't do as many laps as Max Verstappen in the afternoon, did 10 fewer laps than Max Verstappen, Renault had more issues inside the garage, and they're a team that I struggle to envision their season. You know, most teams you can roughly say, oh, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari will be at the front, and also I'm not too sure about all these doom and gloom Ferrari rumours, but I think I'll do a separate video on that once testing is completely out of the way. But Renault seem to be struggling quite a bit. The drivers, from what I've seen, seem quite buoyant about the team going into the season. Cyril, Abitable, who's often been critical of the team, seems quite buoyant. And whether that's because they know this year is a waiting game for 2021, I'm not too sure. But Esteban Ocon, who at lunchtime expected to jump in the car straight away. There was no issues for Daniel Ricciardo this morning. He put in a fairly healthy 53 laps. But Esteban Ocon didn't come out of the garage until 2 hours to go. Bear in mind, the afternoon session is 4 hours long. A little bit alarming for the Frenchman. However, in those final 2 hours, put in a straight 74 lap stint. Didn't come in. He might have done a pit stop, although from my recollection, I can't remember him doing that either. Although they don't show us everything on TV, but still, a 74 straight lap stint on the C2 tyres. So yes, 4.6 seconds down doesn't look great, especially when you compare that to a couple of drivers, Norris and Raikkonen, straight in front of him, also on the C2. But when you consider that 74 straight laps, fair play. He put in a mighty stint at the end of the day. And apart from that, that's about it. And I'm sure there's some silly little things I've missed out. Robert Kubica had a spin this morning. Max Verstappen had a couple of spins this afternoon. That Red Bull seems a bit twitchy at the rear end. Something to keep an eye on, but I'm sure they will get that fixed before Melbourne. And it's one of those things that the driver's going to try and push the car to its limits where they can. So it's not a big issue, in my opinion, spins. Even Sebastian's today, although it was a red flag, that was only because there was gravel on the circuit. Nothing too much to scream and shake about today, actually, or scream and shout about. Whatever the saying is. Just a calm day of testing. And with only 2 days to go, I feel it's anyone's game. Yes, Mercedes, the media will make you believe they're the favourites, and they will make you believe that Racing Point are at the front of the midfield. I'm still not convinced. And I don't think I will be convinced until qualifying of the Melbourne Grand Prix. Anyway, I think I'll leave it there. For today, no point dragging it out. That is your review of day 4. 2 more to go. F1 is back, ladies and gentlemen. If you're new around here and you enjoyed today's video, fair play. I mean, if you've made it this far, well done. Thank you very much. And hey, you can consider subscribing if you would like, but you don't have to. Thank you very much for watching, as always, everybody, and I hope to see you in the next one.